we were discussing the sigma algebra generated by a random variable x. We defined this sigma algebra as follows. We took this space omega fp, that is my random variable, and we said that you take all the Borel sets and take the pre-images under x, alright. Take all those subsets of omega which are pre-images of Borel sets under x, right. So, in particular we defined this as the set of all subsets of omega such that A is equal to x inverse b for some Borel b. We can show that this is a sigma algebra. That is a very elementary proof. You have already proved it in your homework, right? Just definition chasing. Now, because x is a random variable, every one of these A's is also f measurable. It's an event, right? Because pre-images of Borel sets are events. Therefore, sigma x is not only a sigma algebra, it is also a sub sigma algebra of f, right. So, we said, so this is a sigma algebra and it is contained in f. So, the sigma of x consists of all those events here whose occurrence or non-occurrence is determined by the realization of x of omega, right. So, it contains all sets of the form. So, any typical A contains is of the form x inverse b, right, which x inverse b is what. So, if you remember, so recall that x inverse b is simply the set of all omega in omega such that x of omega is in b, correct. That is the definition of x inverse b. So, it essentially contains all these sets. So, the moment I give you the realization x of omega, so when the randomness omega realizes, I can determine x of omega, and I can determine for each Borel set, I can determine whether that x of omega lies in that Borel set or not, right. So, for each of these sets A which are of the form x inverse b, I can determine whether they occurred or not, correct. So, which is why this sigma algebra represents all those events here whose occurrence or non-occurrence is completely determined by x of omega x, right. Is that clear? Any questions on this? Sometimes the sigma of x may be as big as f, right. Sometimes it may be much smaller than f. So, for example, let us just take that this as your omega b lambda. See, this is your uniform probability measure on 0 1, and you take and consider the random variable indicator of whatever set you like. You tell me some set you like, Cantor set or some interval, or right, you tell me whatever set you want. Let us say interval 0 1/3 for whatever reason, right. Right, this is the indicator that my omega falls in 0 1/3. Okay. So, in this case let me just call this I A. Okay. This is my event A. Okay. So, this I A takes only two values, right, 0 and 1, correct. Right. So, this will be equal to 0 if omega is not in 0 1/3, it will be 1 if omega is in 0 1/3. This set could be anything, any Borel set. Now this is a random variable, indicator random variable. Now what is the sigma algebra generated by this? So it's the, so you can show that, can verify sigma of IA, so I am just calling this IA, is equal to omega phi, which should always be there, and A complement, right. It only consists of these 4 subsets, omega phi which will always be there, and A complement. This is a sigma algebra, and this is in fact the sigma algebra generated by the indicator random variable. In fact, this is true for any set A, any Borel set A, correct, and this is a much smaller sigma algebra than my f is B here, right. But on the other hand, if I consider the random variable x of omega equal to omega, let us say, so which is a trivial random, it just gives me the value of omega itself, right. In that case, sigma of x will be the Borel sigma algebra again, right, because this is the identity map, right. So is this clear? So just a very trivial example. In fact, for the constant random variable, what happens? The random variable which takes constant values of probability 1, right. So the constant is a random variable, right. So x is equal to some 1 with probability 1, if I say, right, that is a, all these omegas map to, all these omegas are with probability 1, the sample space, the omegas map to just some constant c, right. So in that case your generated sigma algebra will be the trivial sigma algebra omega and phi, right. So that is the random, you cannot look at the constant random variable and decide anything about the occurrence of any other subset. You know that omega occurred and phi did not occur, that is all you can say, right, looking at the realization, the constant random variable. Is this clear? Any questions on this? Okay, so this is a concept that we will use when defining independence and so on. Okay, so we will draw upon this definition later. Okay, just keep this in mind. So we will move on to the next topic, which is several random variables. So whenever I say several random variables, when I am considering more than one random variable, so all these random variables will live on the same probability space. Okay, so they are all on omega f p. Okay. So they are not different, they are not random variables living on different probability spaces. Okay, they are all defined on the same omega f p, and each of them will be a measurable function from omega to r. Okay. So why? So in terms of motivation, right? So as I said, random variables capture some numerical function of your elementary outcome. So if you are looking at some complicated phenomenon like weather or something, you may not even be able to capture what this omega is. It is some very complicated process, right? You do not know what the probability space is, but you may be satisfied by knowing the temperature, which is a numerical function of what realized that day, right. So but you may want to know more than one such numerical function, right. So it may be that the weather is whatever, some complicated space, we may not even know what omega f are, right, and your weather on particular day realizes, then this guy may be temperature, one random variable may be temperature, then there may be another random variable, somebody else may be interested in measuring, let us say humidity or something else, some other numerical function. Okay. But the point is that both these random variables, so you are measuring different things, but it is the same underlying randomness that is feeding these random variables, right. The probability space is the same and the elementary outcome little omega is the same, and once little omega realizes, this guy may capture the temperature, this guy may capture the humidity. Or to make a much simpler example, if you are tossing 10 coins, someone may be, so this x may measure the number of heads and y may measure the number of tosses until I saw the first head or something like that, right. They may be measuring two different things or simply the number of tails, right. But again the underlying randomness feeding these two random variables is the same, right. They are all living in the same probability space. Is that clear? So, whatever it is that we said about, so you may, so for this random variable you can completely characterize it with its probability log p x. Similarly, this will have a p y, and you can specify, or you can specify just the CDF, capital F x and capital F y, right, and all the properties that we said hold for both these random variables. So, if you just want to capture the statistical properties of this separately and this separately, we know how to do it, right. However, so in several random variables, the main issue is how is in capturing the interdependence between these random variables, okay. So, it is not so important how, so I mean, so a single random variable, if you just look at the probability law of x, you have a complete statistical characterization of x, and similarly for y, right. But remember that these random variables are coming from the same probability space, and so if I tell you that the temperature on a certain day is in a certain way, it may tell you that the humidity has to be in a certain way perhaps, right. It may tell you some information because the underlying randomness is the same, right. So, if this was measuring the number of heads and this was measuring the number of tails, right, you can clearly see that there is a dependence between the two, right, because in this trivial case what is not a head has to be a tail, right, but in general the structure of interdependence could be quite complicated. So, this is not the picture we will study if you have multiple random variables. What we will study is this picture, okay. You have the same omega f p, but instead we will look at the map x y as mapping into R 2, okay. So, what I will do is this is x comma y, okay. So, every time omega realizes, I am going to say that I have a point in R 2, right, rather than just look at the two separate real lines, okay, and this will capture my interdependent structure. Is that clear intuitively? So, that is what we will study. Similarly, if you have n random variables, we will look at it as a x1, x2, xn are the random variables all defined on the same probability space. You will look at it as a map from omega f to Rn, okay. Everybody with me? Now, now these are random variables, right. So, you have to look at, so in the single line we said, oh, this sigma algebra on the real line is the Borel sigma algebra, that is the sigma algebra I care about. So, the pre-images of that case might be f measurable, right. So, we know that x and y are like separately random variables in the sense that if you give me a Borel set on R, pre-image will be f measurable. Here also the same thing holds true, but here I am living in R 2, right. Now, this random variable x comma y lives in R 2, right. So, you would imagine that this probability measure on omega f is being pushed on to R 2 by the pair x y, just like x is pushing a measure onto R, you would imagine that x y induces a measure on R 2 on the 2 dimensional plane, correct. Now, except that you want to have a sigma algebra on this, right. On R we know that this is a Borel sigma algebra, right. if you want to push this measure onto R2, we have to say what sigma algebra you are pushing it onto, right. The answer is that I will not say this very, I mean in great detail, but you can define a Borel sigma algebra on R2, all right, which is essentially the sigma algebra generated by, well, it can be generated in multiple ways again, just like on real line we generate it with open intervals or semi infinite intervals and so on. On R2 you can generate it by what is the equivalent of an open interval? An open ball in R2, right. So, you can generate it with an open ball, the set of all collection of all open balls in R2. Equivalently, you can show that you can generate it with open rectangles, you can show that it gives you the same sigma algebra, but the generating class we will consider is in fact semi infinite rectangles, okay, which means sets of the form minus infinity less than or equal to x less than or equal, and minus infinity is cross minus infinity less than or equal to y. Okay. So, we will look at so the Borel sigma can be looked at as the sigma algebra generated by the pi system on R2, which is again this pi system on R2 is the set of all semi infinite rectangles, okay. Right. So, you take sets of that form, right, and you take intersection, find countable intersections, countable unions and complements, and whatever it is the collection of sets you get is the Borel sigma algebra on R2, okay. So, it is the logic is exactly the same, just like you have intervals on the real line, you use open rectangles or open balls. You can show that if you use these semi infinite rectangles or if you use open balls, you get the same sigma algebra, okay. So, yeah, I mean the way, I mean it is a little bit of a non trivial proof, because these have edge, these are, they are like rectangles, but if you have to generate balls from them, I guess if you want to generate something like that, you have to approximate it by a sequence of some sets, right. You keep you construct a countable sequence of sets in R2 such that the ball can be the countable union is the ball, right, and then to get the other way around, to show that these kind of sets can be generated from the open balls, you have to make up some other argument, right, but you can do it, okay, a standard proof, okay. So far you can believe it at least, all right, that is good. So, this is the Borel sigma algebra on R2, and also you can also define a Lebesgue measure on R2, okay. Lebesgue measure on R2 corresponds to area, okay. So, what you will do is, I have these generating classes which are essentially rectangles, right. So, minus infinity. So, what you will do is you take some rectangle of side A and B, you will say that I want the measure of that set to be A times B, right, the area, right, and then you take F naught, which is a countable union of these rectangles, and you assign whatever measure you want to it, right, the measure which is the area, and then you invoke Carat-Theodori, verify countable additivity of P naught, and you will get a measure on this, right. Same procedure, I am not repeating it because it is the same thing, right. In fact, you can do all of this in Rn, nothing changes, right. So, you can get a Lebesgue measure on R2, which is defined on this Borel sigma algebra, which corresponds to area, okay. So, that is well and good. So, you have Borel sigma algebra on R2. Now we want to talk about, so let us say you are given some complicated Borel set here, right. I want to talk about the probability that, so let us say this is my Borel set B, it need not be something nice, it can be something quite crazy. In fact, on R 2 there are a lot more crazy sets than there are on R, right. In R you can count some Cantor sets and so on, here you can do all sorts of things, right. There is Cantor dust, there are all sorts of fractals on R 2, right. You can create some totally crazy sets, and some of many of those are actually Borel, okay. And you want to talk about the probability that x comma y lies in some Borel set, right. Now the question is an event like this. So if you take, ideally we want to talk about this, right, omega belongs to omega such that x comma y, which means, by which I really mean x of omega comma y of omega, lies in some Borel set. So this is some Borel set in R 2, okay. Whenever I write x comma y in B, this is some Borel set in R 2. Now is this an event? I ideally want to talk about something like this, correct, agreed. So is this an event, meaning that is this what is inside this P. See, I can talk of P of something only if it is F measurable, right. Is what is inside this guy F measurable. See, if you give me Borel set on R, I know that probability of x lying in that B or y lying in some other B prime, right, they are all separately F measurable. But if you give me some Borel set on R 2, what do I do? Do I know that it is F measurable? It is not obvious, you have to prove it. This is true, okay. This is in fact F measurable, but you have to prove it, okay. So the way to prove it is that, so you know this, right. So you know, let us say that, so okay, let me, so I will do one thing. So instead of rather than prove this in class, I will give this to you as a homework as a guided proof, okay. This will be a homework. You have to show that these kind of, so for any Borel set B in R 2, it is a little bit of an involved proof, it will take 5 to 8 minutes to do it properly. So I thought might as well just do it in homework. So this set, you know that the pre images of Borel sets on R are F measurable for both x and y, but if you are given some Borel set on R 2, you want to prove that the pre image is F measurable, right. Only then can you talk about something like this, correct. This you will do, okay. It is actually an, I mean you just have to do it properly, it is not sophisticated or anything, okay. So you have to show, okay, this is homework. There will be a guided proof, okay. I will not just say prove this, okay. I will tell you how to do it in the problem, okay. All right, good. So you want to do this, right. Once you have proven that this is F measurable, I have a probability law for Borel sets on R 2, correct. So this is what this is the probability law after all, right. So this is, you can denote this as P x comma y of B, right. This guy is defined to be equal to P x y of B. Okay. Because if you did not prove this, you cannot speak of this event, right. I mean, you cannot say speak of this probability if you did not prove that that set were to be F measurable, right. You do not need any further assumptions, you can just prove it if x and y are separately random variables in the sense that pre images of Borel sets are F measurable, you can prove that this is an event, okay, with me. Okay, good. So this is my probability law on R 2, right, probability law. So this is called joint probability law. This is the joint probability law of x and y. So, this specifies everything there is to capture about the interdependence of x and y, right. So, you give me any Borel set you like on R 2, I can tell you what the probability of x and y mapping into that Borel set is, right. So, I can tell you the probability of x and y mapping into that Borel set. That is what this joint probability law tells me, okay. And that is a complete statistical characterization of not just x and y separately, but jointly, right. From the joint probability law of x and y, can you generate the probability law of let us say x? How will you do that? So, you will just the B you feed into this will simply be, so you have some Borel set on R, okay. You say that B cross R, right, that will be a Borel set, you feed that in, you will get the marginal probability law of x, right, of x alone. And similarly for y, if you want the probability of y lying in some Borel set, you feed the set you feed in here will be R cross whatever set you want, right, those are all Borel sets you can show, okay. So, from here you can get the individual marginal probability loss of x and y separately. However, if you are given the probability loss of x and y separately, you may not be able to get the joint probability law, okay. So, separately specifying Px and specifying Py for all Borel sets is not enough to obtain Pxy of on R2, okay, because you are losing out on the interdependent structure, right. You only say what the statistical probabilities of x separately and y separately is not capturing the interdependent structure, right. Yes.
Sigma x and sigma y are same, whether random variable will be same?
No, it is not true.
And in this several random variable definition, any constraints are there on the sigma algebra generated by them?
No, I did not say anything like that.
So, it can be different.
Yeah. See, they have to be defined on the same probability space, okay. So, you have some underlying space of coin tosses or dice throws or weather or whatever, x and y are both defined on the same probability space. You cannot have x being drawn from some experiment involving coin tosses and y being involved from something else, picking a random student or something, right. That is not what we are talking about. We are talking about all random variables are living on the same probability space. This sigma x and sigma y.
Subsigma algebra means they will be on the same probability space, right?
Well, yeah. So what I am saying is, so sigma x will be some subsigma algebra of f, sigma y will be some other subsigma algebra of f. They may or may not be the same. There is no constraint at all.
If they are similar, if they are equal, that does not mean that x and y are equal.
No, they are not. Right? Yeah. It is not true that if sigma x and sigma y happen to be the same sigma algebra, it does not. It is not at all true that x and y are equal.
But both map the probability p to px, right?
That is true, but however the interdependent structure may be quite complicated. So, if you give me a Borel set here, the set of all pre-images of Borel sets may be the same as the set of all pre-images of Borel sets here. So, if you take, to give you a very simple example, let us say this is 0-1 interval with then you take x of omega equal to omega, y of omega equal to 1 minus omega, right, to make a very trivial example. Then both sigma y and sigma x are in fact the Borel sigma algebra, but I mean, so you cannot say anything about the random variables, right. Is that okay? Okay, good. So, now so where was I? So, that is the joint probability law. If you know the joint probability law, you know everything about the joint statistical properties of x and y. But knowing separate probability laws Px and Py is not enough to conclude what Pxy is, joint probability law is.